All right, so the topic today is raising livestock on 5 acres or less. And I am in Carroll County and I'm not at my kitchen table when the weather is cloudy and so forth. My internet goes in and out there. So I'm in my office today here in Carrollton. When we talk about, if you got 5 acres or less and what you want to do on that property when it comes to animals, and we all have went through the pandemic and we had a food shortage in some areas. So maybe one of the reasons that you're looking at using your 5 acres for livestock production is supplement food for your family. Another reason that you may want is your kids are involved in FFA or 4-H and they want to do some type of animal project for the fair. That's another place that you can raise some of these smaller animals on 5 acres. And then some of you just might want some extra income from the farm. And we're going to talk about the needs of livestock next, and then the different types of livestock and what you may be looking at. So we all know that livestock, one of the biggest things they need is water. Everything living has to have water. They also need a barn or some type of shelter, fencing, at least an outside sturdy fence. If we're doing the smaller livestock species, we can do some rotational grazing with some temporary fence, movable fence like the electric netting or electric wire. They need that area to graze and exercise. But depending on the sizes of the animals and the amount of your 5 acres you put into pasture, it's probably not going to support them all their feeding needs. So you may end up buying those grains or forages, especially that hay, to supplement the animals that you're raising. And then, of course, there's always the miscellaneous. You've got medication costs, you've got handling equipment, depending on what you're doing. You may need a manure spreader, manure plan, depending on how many you're raising. So there's all things that extra things that you need to worry about and how much money you're willing to put into this operation. So just think of the things that you have already. I am one of those people that have 5.1 acres. And when I got there was no fence at all. And I have 2 of those animals that you're not going to make money on. We have 2 horses. And when it comes to animals, the bigger the animal, the more resources it needs to survive. With my horses, we have 3 paddocks and we have a sacrifice lot. Right now it's raining. They are in the sacrifice lot with water and hay. When it's not raining and when I get home from work, that's when they get out on those pastures, because horses can be really hard on ground. We have compaction, we can have soil erosion, so forth. So they only need a minimum time out there for exercise. My 5 acres does not support their feed needs. Basically, they're on the sacrifice lot and they get hay and grain every day. We have a lot of 5 acre lots. Everybody wants a horse, but horses are hard on soils. So think about that before you get into that. The bigger the animal, the more needs that they have. So let's talk about really what the animals that we can provide our own meat for, for our family, or eggs, go into that. So beef and dairy cattle both. Usually 1 to 2 acres per cow. You can sell beef, you can sell milk, cheese, butter, calves, and breeding stock, but you're not going to be able to have that many. So when you look at 5 acres, think about having that, raising that steer up, maybe to put in your freezer. Or if you have a few acres, maybe buying a couple of calves and raising to sell freezer beef. So feeders or stockers for that is a good thing to have. You will have to, again, you will have to buy feed if you want to finish an animal for your freezer, and hay if you're going to keep that animal over the winter. There are many breeds. We have many Herefords and stuff that don't get as large. You know, they stay under 1,000 pounds compared to our full-size beef cattle, dairy cattle. It all depends on how much work you want to put into it. Now, I will tell you there is a problem. When you only have 5 acres and you have 1 steer and you have kids or grandkids, or maybe even yourself, we tend to name that animal. And that makes it very hard then sometimes for people to put them in the freezer to consume for their own family, because it makes it very hard. So consider that before you decide to spend a lot of money on that beef steer and then grow him out, because he's going to be there for quite a few months before he goes in the freezer. And when you name them, that makes it really hard for some family members to eat. Now we'll get towards the smaller animals, the easier to handle animals. Pigs are an option on 5 acres. They can, be destructive. So we need to worry. They like to root. And so they can be destructive on our pastures. But if you have that sacrifice lot and so forth, and you're just raising pigs to put in the freezer, 10 to 12 pigs per acre. It all depends on their size. Then again, you may want to raise a litter of show pigs a year if you've got kids showing animals at the fair, and sell them off for meat. Or you can go buy feeder pigs either from a producer or at the auction barn and raise those up to slaughter weight. You only have them for a few months, so that is an option. You still need shelter. There is a quicker return on money because you're not breeding or whatever. But if you do decide to breed pigs and raise litters of pigs, 1 or 2 sows, they're easy to AI breed, artificial inseminate. They do have litters, so there's multiple births depending on the breed, anywhere from 8 to 12 per litter. And of course, it only takes, as we say, 3 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days for a litter of pigs to come on the ground. And I'm probably going through this way too fast. If anybody has any questions we need to talk about, let me know. So pigs are easy, and I like pigs because pigs have personalities. Probably the animal that really has a lot of personality. They're fun to watch. They play, they run. They just are very interesting, and they're smart. I'm kind of going to talk about sheep and goats together. That both of these species have both dairy and meat species. Normally 2 acres, 2 per acre in a small setting. Depends, a lot on your soil type also that we need to worry about. They're small in size, and some breeds are easier to handle than others. But you need to think about the breeds, what you're wanting to sell there. Do you want breeding stock? Again, show lambs or goats for the fair. Meat, milk, cheese and butter. If you want to sell the wool, or you're going to make, work the wool and make sweaters or whatever. There's people that do that and dye the wool and sell. There's the hides or pelts for leather. So you need to think about what you want to do with those animals. Basically, sheep and goats have the same needs when it comes to equipment and fencing and feeders. In the sheep species, we have the meat breeds. There are some dairy breeds, and a lot of them are fiber wool breeds, or even hair sheep. So if you don't want to fool with that, shearing, because they need to be sheared every year, their wool off, then you need to think maybe about the hair sheep business. Sheep and goats are both quick multipliers. They have multiples of birth. When it comes, they can be AI'd, artificially inseminated, but you can also rent or lease a ram or a buck from a larger producer. There are producers out there, commercial producers, that do that. One of the things about goats love to eat multiflora rose, brambles, anything like that. And in some of the larger cities, they are now renting goats to clear property. So that's another thing that could be done with the goats. If you want to get into Angora goats, they're sheared twice a year for their fiber. If you're going to sell fiber like that. And then gestation is around 5 months gestation period for having babies for both of these. Excuse me. They're probably easier to handle than most. It's easier the smaller the animal gets as to what they're going to require in both labor and the amount of time you need to put in them, and also their resources. Anybody have any questions on cattle or pigs or goats? Steve?
Sandy, I have a question.
Okay.
This is Rachel. I'm also at the Farm Science Review, so it's a little loud here. So I'm sorry if you can't hear me, but I have we have a fenced in area, but I understand, from talking from some others that about just protecting the sheep and goats that we might have. And I've heard the animals such as a llama may be a good option to kind of protect those animals. Did you have any thoughts about that? I mean, I know there's, dogs who can be kind of guard dogs, but what would your recommendation be on kind of having them out in the area, but still having them be protected from predators?
Okay, very good question. Either a llama or a donkey would work. And I know a lot of people do use guard dogs, but you have to think too, the guard dog can't be a family pet. And that's what a lot of times happens on a small acreage with that the dog also becomes the pet. With the llama or a donkey, the feed requirements and stuff, they're out there with your goats or your sheep. They're eating the grass. You don't have to worry about dog food or whatever. I have experience when I'm from West Virginia, and we used to have 130 ewes. My experience mainly is with donkeys. And what I have found with donkeys is it's better, females work better. And if a female has a baby on her, a little one, she is a lot more protective. She considers, they consider those lambs or goats theirs. And so they're a lot better at protection than what a male would be. I'm not saying you can't use a male, but that motherly instinct is there. Llamas work also, llamas, but they have to be, you couldn't have 2 or 3. They work better as a single because they attach themselves to the herd that they're guarding. I know people that have used both, and both of those. I just think probably, like I said, the biggest problem with dogs on a small acreage is they're right there close to the house also, and they become attached to the family also. So they don't always stay in with the animals all the time. If you have a llama or donkey, they are penned in the same pen. So they both do good. I've seen them work, especially coyotes. That's
So how much area would you have them be in if you had, like, say 10 sheep or goats and a llama? If you had that one llama, how much area would you have them all in together?
at least an acre if you have 10 or more, and then plan to move them, rotation them through the paddocks, however many, on 5 acres, you're not gonna have, because you figure your house, your yard, is probably going to take up 2, somewhere in there, driveway, all that. And then, have that ability, and with the llama, so forth, also, you can use that netting electric fence and divide your acres off and rotationally pin them around in that 1 acre part. But you're definitely going to need, like I said, a sacrifice lot in case, we have dry weather and the grass doesn't grow back, but you're going to have to rotational, because they will eat it down just like other animals. And you need to be able to move them from time to time. Once your grass in that area that they're in gets about 3 inches, then it's time to move them to a new part and let that grow back.
Great, thank you.
Yes. Any other questions? Anybody? Okay, so
I'll say, remember, this is a conversational item, so feel free to ask questions. Feel free to turn your cameras on, but we want this to be conversational, and we're here to help answer your questions that you might have.
Another animal that you can raise on small acreage is rabbits. If you've seen anybody, I don't know if everybody's watched, you've seen some of these sustainable homesteads programs on TV and so forth. Rabbits can be raised on pasture with portable pens that you can move around your acreage, let them eat the grass and fertilize the area, and then move them on. You can sell meat from rabbits. You can sell breeding stock. They're a smaller animal, easier to work with. Show rabbits. You can sell the manure as garden additives, pelts. So there's a lot of things you can do with rabbits if you want to, and you can provide meat for your own family. They do have multiple litters, and there is a quick return on them because the gestation period for rabbits is only 30 to 32 days. So you can do a lot with rabbits. And like I said, if you've seen the portable pens, you put 2 tires on the back of it and build a little pen, kind of like a chicken pen, and small to the ground, and roll them to a new area every day or so. And that's the same way with chickens and poultry. Depending on what you want to do, if you're only doing eggs, want to sell eggs or have eggs for your family, If you only want to do that, remember you don't need a rooster, especially if you have close neighbors. You don't need a rooster. It's all you want. So, table eggs. You do need a rooster if you want to raise chicks and so forth and sell. And when we talk about poultry, there's more than just chickens. You could do ducks, turkeys, geese, guineas. You could do game birds. It depends on what you want to do. My recommendation is to get started with, if you're going to get those chicks and start them out, either order them from a certified hatchery because all the health, so forth, or you can go to Rural King, Tractor Supply, any of those farm stores. Just lost my earbud. Any of those farm stores that are selling chicks, because all of those chicks have to come from a certified hatchery that is health inspected and so forth. So that's a good place to get. Now, remember, if you're wanting eggs and you get those baby chicks, it takes about 20 weeks before they start laying. And you'll need to induce some lighting there to get them to lay early. Or when you think about what you might want to raise, and you go, maybe you want a certain breed, brown eggs or white eggs, or what I call the Easter egg breeds, or you want a breed of chicken that will produce both meat and eggs for your family. If you go on and look at the hatchery books, they'll show you which breeds will do that. Or maybe you just want to be exotic and raise some of those that are rare breeds, the silkies. They're not rare, but they're a different breed, or that you can sell, or whatever is eggs. Breeding stock, hatching eggs. You could even sell hatching eggs with the rooster or whatever. But again, if you're just raising them for your family, you don't need another 100 hens. Remember, they're going to lay just about 1 egg a day on the most of them. So that, if you have 10 hens, 10 eggs a day, that gets built up really fast. So backyard, you could get away with 5 or 6, get a dozen every 2 days of eggs. You need to think about what you're going to use, because I have a lot of people that say, oh, well, I got, I wanted 5 of these and 10 of these, and all of a sudden they have eggs that they don't know what to do with. So you need to figure out, if you're going to sell those extra eggs or give them away to family, what you're going to do with them.
Sandy, I do have a question about that.
Okay.
Is it best to get the chicks for eggs? Like, we want to have eggs for our family. Is it best to get those chicks in the springtime, or does it matter what time of year we order them from the hatchery?
It's best to get them in the spring, especially if you want layers, because like I said, they need increased light as they get older to that 20 weeks. And of course, our days are longer in the spring going into summer, so they come into production sooner. So I would recommend, getting them into March, when you don't have to worry a lot with the heating, that they get bigger as it heats up. Just because get them in March, May, June, July, August, you're looking at August, September, you're going to start getting eggs then, because about 20 weeks is what it takes. And when it comes to breeding and incubating eggs, as it gets hotter and so forth, the fertility goes down also in those hens. So it's a lot easier to get those chicks in the springtime and raise them up than it is in fall. Anybody else? Questions? Did I answer that okay?
Sandy, we do have a question in the chat, and I'd like
Okay.
to introduce Heather. She's my co-leader,
Hey,
Heather
Heather.
Nykirk in Stark County. But the question in the chat is from Corey, and it says, I have an inside-outside pen originally made for hogs and thinking about getting goats. Are hog panels okay for goats?
Yes. You're talking about the metal hog panels, you think, or right? Okay.
Yes.
Yes. They are fine for goats. In fact, a lot of those type of panels are interchangeable with the smaller species breeds, goats, sheep. So yes, you would be fine with that. I can't think of any. Yeah, they can't get through them. They should be good. I don't know what they look like really, but are they wooden? Are they metal?
They're metal.
Okay. Bars straight up and down or horizontal?
They're kind of like in squares.
Okay, in squares. The only thing I would worry about, I don't know how big the squares are with the goats, and if you get a horn breed, you may have to watch them getting their head through or whatever, and not being able to get it back through. I would think they shouldn't be that big that they could slip their head through. So you should be all right.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
sometimes, you have to worry about breeds that have horns with those.
Okay.
Okay. What else? Anything else? Okay, I just have a couple more, suggestions that you could do. Bees are a big thing. Honey. You can actually rent out hives to people in orchards and so forth. If you get in that, you have beeswax you can sell. There's a lot of byproducts from these animals that you could sell also. If you wanted to get into emus and ostriches, that's a possibility on small acreage. What is it? An ostrich egg equals a dozen chicken eggs, just about. So there's also meat there. And I did, Rachel, I did have alpacas here for fiber, and of course llamas, but you can use them as guard animals. I will tell you, I used to teach on the college level, and I had a student that was a pre-vet major, and I just wanted to share with you what she did on her 5 acres. They have 3 little kids. She works at home, and they have Nubian goats, and she sells breeding stock. She also makes soap and cheese. And last year she ventured out and made a caramel sauce out of goat's milk that she is selling. They have a few Jacob sheep that she is selling for meat, and also Jacob breed is a colored wool fiber that she is selling the wool for making sweaters, hats, so forth. She has, I think it's 2 different breeds of rabbits. They sell meat, and they also sell breeding stocks and sell some as pets. She does specialty chickens, like rare breed chickens, and she lives over towards Maryland, and in that area they have a lot of swap meets and different weekend type sales where they go and sell their wares. So she sells not only chicks, but she sells hatching eggs to people for rare breed chickens. I had never heard of this. They do what's called a Welsh harlequin duck that they sell hatching eggs and also ducklings at these deals. Her kids are very involved. And the last thing they sell is hedgehogs. So they sell a variety of different things. And she is home on their 5 acres raising the kids. So I think that's, there's a lot of different things you can do out there with your small acreage. But before you decide, your plan out, what you're going to do, You need to have a plan. Make your farm plan. Estimate your cost. If you don't have shelter already, they need shelter. You need fence. You need to figure out the cost of your feed. Even though you have 5 acres, you need to make a plan on how much you're willing to spend, what you're wanting to do, what animals you're wanting to raise, what you want them to provide for your family, and so forth. So that's about all I had. What else do we need to discuss? What I miss, Heather? She's looking at me.
Another question. Well, Heather can't hear you because you're
I
in my
know.
ear. But I've been trying to tell her each time you change topics what you're talking about.
Yep.
But what other questions do you guys have? Is there a topic that you want to know more about that Sandy didn't touch base about today?
Nobody's gonna say anything.
Well, if there's no other questions, and I want to thank Sandy for conducting this session with us today. And if you can use the same link tomorrow and join us for kitchen table conversations at 11:30. And we will be talking with Bridget Brighton about mental health and first aid in the farming family.
Thank you.